Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to dive into this conversation because I have had my own journey with trauma and overcoming that and working through that to become a better person and entrepreneur. And that's really where your sweet spot is in helping people overcome those obstacles in their lives. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. You have such a so much experience and such a great background as an author, as a creator, and a thought leader in the mental health space. So I can't wait to dive into of your different modalities that you're using to help coaches and therapists and the like build their skills. But first, can you give us a peek into your journey through addiction and trauma to be where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up with obviously my parents doing their best, but I didn't really have any emotional support. There was divorce early on, and then both of my parents got into narcissistic abusive relationships. So I really grew up feeling quite alone and like I didn't have a safe space. I also was alone at school and got bullied. And so, my nervous system was like, nowhere is safe. It's not safe to be in my body. And I was disassociated for a lot of my childhood. And then when I started becoming an adult and even, being a teenager in those years, I really rebelled. I wagged school. I had addictions. I was very risky. And that kind of translated into when I went into my 20s, I still had these negative patterns and I didn't know how to sit with uncomfortable emotions. I didn't know how to deal with my low self-esteem. I was very much in victimhood mode. But finally, after I guess a rock bottom, I went and sought therapy. And in 2014, I had a real awakening after my first therapy session of, oh, my past does affect me and it is safe to feel my emotions. And I can change some of these patterns and how I feel about myself and others in my life.
Hmm. I mean, it's one thing to kind of have that realization, but it's totally another level to then begin to create, concepts and therapies that others can apply. And so tell us about your root cause therapy and, your approach to healing and kind of, I think your approach is more holistic than maybe some other therapies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a few counseling sessions before, maybe one guided meditation I had experienced at school, and that was kind of it. And then when I went to seek therapy, it was a transformative type of therapy. So it was NLP and hypnotherapy and things like that. And that really took it to another level and got me super interested. And I ended up studying it straight away and changing my whole career and starting my coaching business. I think after I got certified, I resigned 2 weeks later from my job and said, this is what I'm going to do. Um, and the risk taker still is a little bit there. But that turned into me going on this huge healing journey. So I was learning kind of mainstream therapy methods alongside with going on my own journey of working with shamans and healers. I lived with two other healers for a year and we all taught each other about the subconscious, the superconscious, the unconscious mind, somatic work. And we all kind of stepped away with our own methodologies. And I was particularly interested in helping myself overcome my addictions. And I came across some lectures and I had a lot of light bulb moments. And whatever therapies I found or information I found, I started piecing it together. And that's kind of ended up becoming root cause therapy. And after I was able to help a lot of people with their addictions with this information and this method, one of my clients actually said, do you want to open a addiction and mental health center together, which is like a holistic alternative one, rather than a normal rehab? It's all about healing trauma, energy work, kinesiology work, inner child healing, that kind of thing, and approaching it as a personal development journey, and helping people get to the point where they felt better without getting them to feel that naturally by healing the heavy stuff that they were uncomfortable to sit within their body, which is essentially our lived experience journey that we had. So it didn't have a name at the time, but we were running these programs and we grew to a team of 5 in Melbourne, and we ran that for about 5 years. And then we got to the point where we're like, okay, we can call this something. We got it accredited. And now for the last nearly 5 years, we've been training people all around the world in this method. And it's literally, like you said, holistic. And it's really about having breakthroughs and huge awareness in every session. It's not just talk therapy. It's a little bit deeper, where you're finding the root cause of your symptoms or your patterns or your issues.
That's so interesting. And the thing is, I think anybody who's been through a journey where they've found ways to kind of heal their traumas and have this different level of life experience, you just want to help people, right? You just want to share.
Like I found my purpose. It was bang, it hit me like a lightning bolt halfway through my training. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. And it's such fulfilling work. And I think, like you said, that's how a lot of people get into this space of having their own experience and be like, everyone needs to do this. Right. There's definitely a passion behind it that hasn't wavered from the start.
Right. I love that. And I think it's so interesting that you're not only helping people who may have been through those traumas, but or traumas that they need healed, or have addictions or maladaptive behaviors. Let's say that. Something that's in their way to living their life to the fullest potential. But you're also helping to educate therapists, coaches, and healers. So can you tell us about some of those ways that they can learn? Because I think that's so important. I mean, I think every entrepreneur should do a deep dive into,
Oh my gosh. Yes. In terms of my healing journey, so one half was obviously healing myself, becoming kinder to myself and others. That was a real driver, because with all that trauma, I had a lot of anxiety and anger and rage built up. And then when you have a child, it's like a whole nother level of like a mirror of like, oh my gosh, how could my parents have done that to me or not done that?
Right.
And it gets so many triggers, and it awakens like you'll naturally just start to have triggers come up, and that journey in itself. And then on the side of that, building a business or, working your way up in a career, you meet all your insecurities. Like you ask for that next level, you've got to release everything that is not aligned with that next level, like all the ways you don't believe in yourself, all the ways that you think that you're not good enough, all the ways, that all has to come up. So half of my journey has been a lot of that. And I've got another course, trauma informed manifestation coaching. And it is really about, you've got to regulate your nervous system to feel safe, to call in that next level of income. What belief systems are you still holding or conditioning that you believe, do you still believe you have to work more to make more? If you believe that, you're going to sabotage yourself. So that in itself, there's there's two journeys going on at once, particularly, when you're a parent and you're in business. It's a lot. So to have that experience, to have that knowledge, you just got such a one-up on your previous self that's probably struggling and just like reacting to life, or reacting to, if people are saying you're good enough, and then believing in yourself. No, it starts with you. You have to choose, you have to lead, yourself. And it's funny you say like everyone needs to do this kind of work. So we made a free certification. So it's called Trauma Informed Certificate for Coaches, but actually parents take it, leaders in the sports community, managers take it, bosses take it, to have a trauma informed lens and a more compassionate way of looking at yourself and others, and being able to start to peel back, like, why is my staff member having this behavior, or why did I react like that? and starting to understand the physiology and the nervous system and how it can actually show up. I think that, you know, that's been our way to give back. So I think we've had about 85,000 people around the world. It's a 100% free course. It's
That's
just our
amazing.
way to kind of give back and to
Yeah,
raise that knowledge and that awareness. That's so important, we believe. Yeah.
I love that. And I'll definitely leave links in the show notes to that because
Yes.
you're right. Even as a parent, I mean, I have a daughter who's about to graduate high school, and all of those little things about, like, one guest mentioned she struggles with, you know, not teaching her daughter how to, her worth is connected with her homework and her chores. Like,
Yeah.
it's just little things like that that we just pass on unconsciously, that you start to be more mindful, and you start going, wait a minute.
And that's it. And we're the ones that are breaking the generational trauma, the generational cycles, the generational patterns when we
Mhm,
are open to being aware. And
mhm,
the first thing is not shaming ourselves. Like, okay, I've yelled at my child, I've had that reaction. It's about, you know, inquiring and being curious. Like, why
mhm,
was my capacity full that day? Can I repair with them quickly? Is there a way that I can look after myself a little bit differently so I don't get to that level of my capacity where I can't hold space for both of us and their big emotions that they will
mhm,
inevitably have? um, and changing those patterns of like how we were parented, changing it, and then our parents saying, no, we didn't do that with you guys, or, you know, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you
mhm.
deal with standing up for, no, I'm gonna make sure I don't pass that down? So there's a lot there that we can work with. And I think just having a little bit more information can really give us some tools to
Mhm.
go, you know, I feel like I'm about to yell or whatever. Okay, I've got a resource and a tool and a way to regulate myself so I don't get to that point. So I don't have to get to the rupture and the repair. You know, I
Mhm.
think parents, bosses, like everyone could do with a little bit of that in our relationships, really.
Absolutely. No, I love that you brought up one of my favorite words, which is capacity. And as somebody who was over functioning and had no boundaries and was constantly trying to do everything for everybody, I never stopped to think about what is my capacity. So, for some listeners who are just heard you say that, they may have been in my shoes and never even thought, hey, I'm supposed to do it all, be all, help everybody all the time, not take care of myself first and even consider their capacity. So I love that you're reminding us to do that, because you even constantly have to check
Absolutely.
in.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like even 2 days ago, my son was at home from school because he was a little bit unwell, but he got better and he was just like chatting away and excited and mum every 5 minutes. And he was just being the sweetest, happiest little thing. And I'm like, my partner walked in, I'm like, I am about to lose my shit, as we say in Australia. I need 10 minutes to myself because I didn't want to yell at him. He was happy. He
Right.
was like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." But I was just like, if I hear mum one more time, like I'm literally going to yell. So I realized I was so close to the end
Mhm.
of my capacity and I just went into my office and I'm like, okay, take a breather, you know, and that was really that, just having that little self-awareness and
Yeah.
those little shifts, if you can, I think is so important. And I want to touch on what you said about, you know, and I think this is particular for women or those identify as women. And, you know, obviously most moms are women. It's like we were taught as little girls often that we had to be good and we had to do everything for everyone else. And, you know, as a mum, like we're just expected to do that. But that we're going to drop balls. Like we have to
Yeah.
raise our standards and our boundaries, like you said, and not be scared that we're going to lose relationships or validation or love when we look after ourselves first. Because it's just like when you're in an airplane, they tell you you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your child. But that's an analogy for your life. You know, your kid needs you to be happy, so you need to ensure that you're making that a priority so you can
Mhm.
overflow to others that rely on you.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that we're living in this time where that is more and more becoming a strength rather than being seen as a weakness. I feel things are beginning to change, thankfully. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, let's talk about your book, The Natural High. You kind of touched on it in that you found these ways to actually naturally feel, you know, optimistic, I'm guessing, and hopeful about your life. So tell us about why you wrote the book and what you hope readers will learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. So when we went to shut down the outpatient rehab and transition to online, which thankfully was just before COVID,
My God.
we just my intuition was so on point. Just months before it said to move online, it was like yelling at me. I'm like, okay. But basically I felt a little bit guilty that I was like, but this information, like people need this information about addiction and how to naturally get to a space where you don't need substances anymore to get to a certain emotional state, which I had learned, which we took our clients through. And so that's where the book was birthed from, out of me feeling guilty that we shut down the rehab. But now we have practitioners all over the world, obviously delivering it. But the information is just really specific about, in terms of from my own personal lived experience.
Mhm.
I realized that I had suppressed so many negative emotions and I wasn't comfortable in the present moment, and sitting in my body just felt really uncomfortable. And my go-to was disassociation or numbing with alcohol and drugs. And so what I learned over my healing journey was that, okay, it is safe to be in my body, in terms of it is safe to feel negative emotions. I'm not going to die, or not, I'm going to get castrated or, sent out of the community, and just really like telling your body that it's safe to process what you're feeling rather than push it down more. And when you start to do that, the gold and the wisdom that's on the other side of that is insurmountable, because you absolutely, sometimes you can process an emotion in like 2 minutes that you've been holding on to like for 10
Mm,
years. And then
yeah.
you get this incredible wisdom that drops in after, and your vibration goes up a little bit.
Mhm.
And what we found with a lot of our clients, or most of them, was firstly, we didn't tell them to abstain using whatever they were using, whether it was shopping, sex, whatever it was. Come in, we'll start doing the healing work. Where is your vibration now? So we used to use the Dr. Hawkins scale of consciousness.
Mm,
Where is your vibration now when you use, or when you have your maladaptive behavior? Where do you feel like you go to? You go to hope, love, peace. You get like a little taste of it. And then obviously it goes away because it's not natural, and you go back down to your baseline of where, like, because of all your baggage that you're holding on to and suppressed your whole life, and all your masks that you've put on. And so what we did, we would methodically start to release those emotions and that baggage and heal those traumas, and their state of being and their ability to feel the positive hormones and emotions naturally increases. And they got to the point where they were like, I actually went to relapse. Like I used again, or I did the behavior again that normally makes me feel that way. It actually made me feel worse, and I actually feel better without it. It was a real natural progression of them wanting to stop, without getting people to just stop and then just sit in their pain their whole life. We really like helped them work through why they couldn't feel comfortable sitting in the moment, what flashbacks they were getting in their feelings. So I just
mhm.
wanted to translate that into a little book for people to have that information, and to notice different ways as well to start accessing those natural positive hormones and chemicals that are already in our body. They're just getting blocked.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the real gist of the book, and a bit about our story as well and how we started the center. um and yeah, just some hope for people that they don't have to always feel like this, how they're feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. I heard somebody say that we progress at the rate that we feel safe, the rate of
Mm,
safety. And it is so true when you've done some of this internal work and you're like, whoa. And so, if there's anybody listening who is struggling with a behavior that they feel is holding them back, just starting to dip your toes in the water of some of the ways that you can you know, begin to regulate your emotions, or, um, incorporate whatever has happened to you into your nervous system. It's a really phenomenal experience. I love that so much. So many mom entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast, struggle with balancing, all of the personal healing with also building a business and parenthood. So what advice do you have for them in their moments of struggle with balancing it all? What are some of the things maybe that you use? You mentioned just taking a minute for yourself, which I think we often, simple thing. I hear so many people who think it has to be elaborate and expensive, but I don't really think it has to be. So what are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, you don't always have to get an Airbnb for the weekend.
Right.
I mean, it'll be nice, but yeah, like you said, it could get expensive when all you needed was 10 minutes and just have some tools to regulate your nervous system and you're back to
Mhm,
your connected present self,
mhm,
to your kids. The first thing that I would say is it's a juggle. So you're going to drop a ball sometimes. So go easy on yourself. You can't be perfect. I remember pre-doing this work, I was really like, I have to be fit and I have to be perfect and I have, and it was just
yeah.
like, no, like, number one, like what's going to be best for our family? I don't really care what other people think anymore. The other thing is we get really influenced growing up by what we see. So if we grew up
Yeah.
in a suburb or a community where everyone had a nanny and a cleaner and there was a chef, we're going to have a different expectation and standard when we
Mhm,
become adults. So for me, I didn't have that. And, my mum was quite poor and things like that. And so I had to release a lot of beliefs around what was possible for me and
mhm,
what I could allow. And it was a real journey. I was, when we had our son, I was taking government payments because we had low income, but I still, like, every 2 weeks I would get a cleaner. I would put it in the budget because I'm like, no, in the future, I do want to allow support in and I do want to make sure I have time with my son. And so then I did that. And then I'm like, oh, that's good. Let's change it to weekly, starting to allow a little bit more support in. And then as I continued to do that and my desire for having more time with my son, I was like, how can I automate a few more things in my business so I can just have a slow morning with my son and eat breakfast with him without rushing?
mhm,
These little tiny baby steps that we can do to have the intention of making our business easier,
mhm,
where it's serving us and we don't feel like a slave to it, like we haven't made it like a hard job. And that balance of how can I be more present and enjoy this time with my children. And as you do that, then you can get to the point where this week my son was sick for a few days. It didn't impact our business in any way. It didn't impact our income. And I was able to be stress-free and present with him, and he could have his mummy cuddles, while he was recovering. And that took 10 years to get to that point. But if that underlying intention is there, you will see opportunities and ways, and you will shed those conditions that you have or what you saw growing up. You can create that if you have that
mhm.
intention.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the time that it took you to get to that place, because so often we want it overnight, or if it's not happening overnight for us, we don't think it's working, or if it's not
Yeah.
possible. And
No, we're
yeah.
going to be real. It took 10 years, but it was a lot of baby steps, a lot of
Mhm,
healing, a lot of shedding, a lot of, breakdowns. I say
mhm,
after a breakdown comes a breakthrough.
mhm,
If I was like seeing clients and getting my partner to come and I was breastfeeding in between clients. And you
mhm,
get to the point where you're like, I don't want to be this. I don't want, like, what can I change?
mhm,
Our negative feelings are important in terms of, like, they create change. I need to get angry. This anger is like showing me that something needs to change in our lives,
mhm,
and embracing that.
mhm. I love that reminder about our negative emotions, being a messenger. That's what I say, because I don't
Yeah.
know how it is in Australia, but I think in the US, we really have kind of had this culture where we didn't want to feel anything. And
Yeah.
It's all about if you're feeling the least bit, depressed or anything, it's not about finding the root cause, but a prescription or a way to kind of escape from that. And so,
Yeah. Oh no, that was my whole life until I was like 25, 26 when I started the journey. I was like, oh my gosh, like not I've suppressed so much because of
mm,
that. And you have to look successful and happy. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you. And then we shame ourselves and we feel any other way, exactly what you're saying. And then when I started the healing journey, I was like, hey, it's not that bad to feel your emotions. And there's always some wisdom in there if you allow it. And we need all of our emotions. Like
mhm,
we feel guilty, that's good. Like what do we need to change in our behavior? If we feel like stressed or fear or anxious, like you said, it's a messenger and it's a way for us to guide our life. But if we suppress it our whole life, it's like our compass doesn't work,
mhm,
anymore.
yeah.
And it's so important. Like if we're in a toxic relationship and we're trying to be positive, like we're enduring things, or in a toxic workplace, we're enduring things that we shouldn't be enduring because we're not connected to how we're feeling.
Mhm. Yeah, and so much of the work that you need to do is to actually just start feeling the feelings, as
Yeah,
uncomfortable
I know
as that
it's people
is.
get so frustrated with that,
But
don't
it
they?
gets easier. That's the
It
thing.
does.
It gets easier. So it might feel really tough in the beginning for anybody listening who's like just beginning that journey or about to. It gets easier. It really does.
It does. And it comes back to your favorite word that you mentioned, capacity. We might have the
Yeah.
capacity, we might have to see a therapist or like do breath work or something to start feeling just a little bit first. And then we can
Mhm.
feel a little bit more. And then we can let a little bit more in. And I guess the technology or the intelligence of our body, it will only let things in that we can have capacity for, like in terms of being safe. So just
Mm.
baby steps. Urgency comes from fear, from like we want to rush and heal everything. Just really like baby steps, increase the capacity, that window of tolerance, a little bit more, create more slower moments in your day, create some space, touch a tree, like look at something that makes you feel wonderful and safe for 5 minutes. That increases that window of what you can tolerate in terms of the negative emotions too.
It's so true. It's just taking those little moments to kind of bring you into the present when we're so much trying to think about the next thing or we're upset about what just happened or
That
all of
is what
those
it's
things.
all about, Angela. Like, I
Mhm.
believe that all healing, it shouldn't be about just going in the past and healing your traumas constantly,
Mm.
or about setting goals about manifestation, even though that's what I
Mhm.
teach. It is about being able to release those things that pop up at the
Mhm.
time that are in the way of us being able to be fully present and enjoy the moment.
Mhm.
That's why we
Yeah,
do it.
it's so important. I'm so glad we had this conversation. I mean, because you know, just as your work is holistic, this podcast is holistic. It's not just focused on business strategy or how to start your business, but also how to be the best person you can be and how to be a better parent and a partner and, take care of yourself better. We're not entrepreneurs in a vacuum. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing all of those things with us because even if you've started on a healing journey, yeah, it's just constant reminders that we all need.
Oh my gosh. And the side benefit is like you will create an amazing business that creates more money, more
Yeah,
impact. Your children will still want to talk to you when they're older. Like there's so many benefits to
right.
inquiring and being on the journey.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And how we do one thing is how we do all things. So you begin to improve how you talk to yourself and treat others, and it just has this ripple effect on all parts of your life, including your business. So, yeah, it's such
Absolutely.
important work. So, if
It
you
is.
had a takeaway or a few takeaways for listeners, what would that be?
I'll share my personal, I guess, mantra or journey is, which has been a guide to my healing, is how can I ask the question every day is how can I be kinder to myself and how can I be kinder to others? And I bet that's been the guiding light for my healing journey. And think of a mantra for you that resonates with you, because you might use that one, or you might have your own individual little mantra of the reason why you're looking to improve the areas of your life or your personal professional development. What is your underlying core why in terms of that to keep you on the path?
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially for moms, because if you have this mantra about how can you be better to yourself, we're usually always putting ourselves last.
Yes.
So I think that that's a really great reminder. And so if listeners want to connect with you and learn more about your work and take the certification and dive into the resources and find your book and all the things, where can they do that?
So so I'll give you the link for the show notes, but it's basically thecenterforhealing.com/free-courses.
Okay.
And you'll see we've got lots of free courses, free certifications that people can just start the journey in becoming trauma informed, in starting the healing journey. We're also on Instagram at the Center for Healing and on YouTube as well. So you can find us in any of those places, and you'll be able to access our courses from anywhere in the world. And like I said, a lot of them are free and short, and you can listen to them while you're driving or while you're taking the kids for a walk or whatever you're doing, to just start to have just more awareness. And I really believe that education is so important and can really set you free and empower you as well. So that's kind of the free courses are our way to give back and to raise awareness for everyone. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so exciting. We live in this time. We have listeners in over 40 countries worldwide. And so wherever you're listening, you can dive into these resources and begin to just make those incremental changes that, 10 years from now, who knows what a dramatic shift that will make in your life. So I love that. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us for this conversation and just doing the work you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. Thanks.